Greetings, grave robbers, and welcome back, live to the television graveyard. I am your TV necromancer, TV's Noah Houlihan. You have joined me tonight to resurrect and dig up the bodies of past television shows to see which ones could be resurrected, should be resurrected, and which one should just stay tuned. This will be a podcast where we look at the history, the hype, and the aftermath of television shows that ran only one season, some that ran only one episode, or this one that I don't think even aired, if I'm being completely honest with you. With me tonight is you, live on Twitch. Yes, once again, this is Stay Doomed Live. For the month of May, our schedules are insane, so finding time to record an episode of Stay Doomed is limited. So I'm doing it when I normally would be streaming video games on Twitch for Plus 2 Comedy Gaming. That should go away once Laura's schedule calms down a little bit, my schedule calms down a little bit, and we can get back to Stay Doomed Classic. But until then, thank you so much for joining me for Stay Doomed Live, because today we are talking about the 1980 unsold pilot for Puzzlers. Puzzlers is a game show where three contestants try to figure out a variety of different puzzles in order to win cash. I was going to say cash and prizes, but it's just cash. So we start. It's a very fun-looking set, lots of reds and blues. Our contestants are kind of wheeled out in behind their podiums. They're seated. It's not one of those standing game shows. And we meet our host, Pat Sajak. That's right, Pat Sajak, the current and forever host of Wheel of Fortune, joins us as our host and welcomes us to Puzzlers. Immediately I got to talk about, first off, he makes an old joke where he's like,
"Thank you. It's a shame you folks couldn't see that at home, a standing ovation. Oh, everybody take your seats. I appreciate that very much. It's so nice."
That's an old joke where you know that the audience is not going to be shown. You can pretend like they're standing up. I'm pretty sure I've done that joke before when recording a podcast live. Oh, sit down. Thank you. Sit down. It's an old joke. It's fine. But I should immediately mention that it's real chummy, this game show. It almost feels like it's almost a dropout TV show. Because, everyone's got, little gags and bits they're doing, and, it seems like nobody cares about winning the money as much as it is being quippy and having a fun show. I'm going to make my theory about that much clearer a little bit later. But Pat Sajak introduces us and to our three contestants who are way too close together. There was a time in game shows where for some reason you wanted your contestants to all be contained in a single shot rather than, cutting to different contestants for different moments. They were all really condensed. It kind of looks like Match Game in a way. The way that the seats are and the podiums are. It's very reminiscent of the old game show Match Game. But there's three of them, and they're kind of squished together. And Pat makes a joke that someone's a giggler. And that giggler is our first contestant, April, who is not just a giggler, but an actress. And she talks about how she's trying to make her way in acting. I immediately go, red flag, game show contestant who's an actress. Is this real? I don't think this is real. I think this is just a pilot where no one actually won, and it's just to get the show over. In any case, April is an actress. Her name is April Ortiz. I did look her up. She is, in fact, a actress. She appeared in Father of the Bride and Father of the Bride Part 2. She was Olivia. I don't remember who Olivia really was in A Father of the Bride, but she's in both movies, so she must have been important. She's also a voice actress. She did some, Nick cartoons. Nothing, of super note, but, she kind of got her reel out there for Nick cartoons. She was also in Grand Theft Auto 5 as additional voices, and something called Kink Inc. that I didn't feel like I should Google. We also have, in the center, is a man by the name of John Oder. And this is such a dumb joke, but I really enjoyed it. His full name is not John Oder. It is John Wayne Oder.
My full name is John Wayne Oder.
Were you named after the actor Wayne Oder?
He's the one, right?
Stupidest joke in the world. Cracked up, liked it. He's like, no, it's actually named after John Wayne. And we get some, like, more bits. Then we get Lori, and Lori is a pitcher, is the way she says it. So I think, oh, you pitch television shows because none of this is real? No, she sells, like, kitchen appliances. And Pat Sajak's like, give me a little bit of your spiel. And she's like, no, because then I'd have to say the name of my product. But I will say, they're non-stick and 20% off for you, Pat. It's 1980. Like, in the 1980s, being on television was kind of, to many, an impossible dream. Like, and this is something that I feel like I need to hit home because I don't think people understand this today. But back in the 1980s, the idea of being on television was hard to do and, like, so special. Like, oh my God, I'm actually going to be on television. People might see this. Now we have the internet. I am seated in my home in front of a green screen, and I can shout into it and talk to you and get seen by dozens of people. The fact that I can get to an audience is not, I don't want to say it's not special, because of course I love having an audience, but it's not like an impossible dream. It's not something that is as rare as it was in 1980. The idea that we got 3 contestants that are all not nervous at all to be on television is a bit strange. They're all like chummy and quippy. You know, it's like how the Avengers make a lot of jokes while fighting a supervillain that could destroy existence. That's how this feels, where it's just like, we're just here to have a good time, Pat. No one feels nervous that they're on TV. No one feels like, oh my God, I have a chance to win some real money here. That, like, lack of feeling really shines through in this pilot. Which, what a pilot's for is not really to, like, sell it to an audience. It's to sell it to an executive. And the fact that, like, they have contestants that are not nervous isn't a downfall for it. It's not a problem for it. That's kind of what it wants, because it wants to present itself as, look how fun this is. Look how fun everyone else is having on it. Don't you want to bring this fun into your home every single weeknight at 6, 5 Central? So we then meet, we've met everybody at this point, and this is the where things get real weird. Pat says that we have this game we're going to play, and the winner of this, out of the 3 of you, will face off against yesterday's champion, Anne. I was like, who the hell's Anne? This is the pilot. How do you have yesterday's champion? So I looked it up. I tried to do some research on it. There's not a lot about this show. I know that we have this because Wink Martindale has Wink's Vault, where he actually pulls out old lost game shows and presents it to the internet. You can check that out on YouTube. And this comes from Wink's Vault. This is a pilot that he dug up that had been buried in his vault and now is sharing with us. So I don't believe Anne's going to be a real champion, but we'll see later when that becomes even more apparent. But right now we have to play the game. Pat Sajak explains how the game works, but does it so quickly that I don't believe anyone, if they were not told before this, would have any idea what's about to happen. And to be honest, it's a simple idea, but explaining it is hard. We're going to show you a picture. The picture is part of a 2-word phrase. We are going to give you, the picture's the second word, and we're going to reveal the first word to you 1 letter at a time. Figure out the phrase. after you figure out the phrase, the picture will mean something else and be the first word, and we're going to show you the second word, one letter at a time. I think I did the best I could explaining it. So they show a picture of a ski jump. Then, so ski, that picture's the second word, and then the letter B appears. And then the letter R. And then the letter O. It is broad jump, which is a phrase I'm not familiar with. Then they're like, all right, now this doesn't mean jump anymore. It means something else. And they show a word that's going to follow it. And an L lights up. Then an I, and they buzz in. It is ski lift, excuse me. This is fine as a concept. It makes sense as a game. It's not super exciting or anything like that. But then they're like, let's move on to the next picture. And the next picture is just a big fat gut. And someone laughs like a supervillain at this. This kind of shows the depth of this show is sometimes the picture's gonna be kind of silly and funny. It's not gonna be great. It's a great way to sell a show. The answers for that are yellow belly and stomach pump. Then the next one, this is a great one. It's a dog who has buried a bone in the backyard. And they show it one letter at a time. W. I. S. H. And then somebody buzzes in, I believe John. But you hear someone in the audience go, wishbone. And then John goes, wishbone. And that is correct, and he wins $100. And then Pat has to say...
And I'd like to caution our audience, it's very tempting to be whispering the answer, but we don't want to mislead or any of our contestants up here, so I'll ask you to hold that down a little bit as we go now to the second half.
Which is a real, professional way to do it. He doesn't, scold them. He keeps it fun and light. It's just you gotta let our players do this, keep it down there in the audience. I'm sure if he had done it again, it would become an issue, and things would escalate. But it reminds me, there's a great clip of Mark Summers doing trivia in Philadelphia. And he's like,
do me a favor and do not shout out any answers. Do not shout out any answers. We're going to play round one, about 10 questions. Then we're going to take about a 15-minute break, do some pictures and autographs. And then we're going to do round two, take another 15-minute break. Then we're going to play our bonus round and find out who the winner is. So here we go. Question number one. What is the oldest continually operating brewery in the United States, and where is it? Shut the fuck up! Would you please? Did I not tell you not to shout out the answers? Jesus Christ!
Cracks me up. It's got to be, I bet Mark Summers has wanted someone to tell someone to F off for so long. So I'm glad he got his moment. Pat Sajak handles this like a pro. Just kind of laughs and keeps going. Until we find our answer. Lori, our saleswoman, who's selling non-stick products for the kitchen, ends up winning. And they pull her out. She wins with a whopping $500, which is not nothing in 1980, but, $500. And they're like, thank you so much for playing. Lori's going to be the one that goes on to take on last time's champion. But we're going to bring you guys back out to try again later. One, I feel like if you lose on a game show, you shouldn't get to just stay until you win. Two, they don't get to come back later. I don't think there's another episode filmed. It's not part of this episode for sure. They're just like, all right, and we'll see you later. So Lori stands next to Pat Sajak, and then the set just rolls the other two into the void, where we will never see them again. It kind of reminded me of the MTV show Remote Control. When you lost a remote control, you were sitting in a recliner, and the recliner would kind of flip and throw you into the wall. This that just rolls into the void, where I assume they are consumed by the darkness. We then bring out last time's champion, Ann Egerton. And Pat says something about how, it's like, oh, Ann, you've last time you won $6,000. I was like, last time? What are you talking about? And even in the way Ann responds, it's kind of like, yeah, $6,000. Makes me feel like, one, she's too comfortable. Two, she's not excited about money at all. And three, this is a pilot. I know you didn't play this before. You're a liar, Ann, and I'm on to you. Ann works for a cosmetic surgeon, and Pat trying to make conversations like...
I didn't ask you last time, what are the most popular things that people come to a plastic surgeon for? What are they? Noses, I would guess?
Noses and breasts.
Noses and breasts.
Yeah.
That's my two favorite parts on a chicken, too, as a matter of fact. So it works out well.
Which compliments for not going crude, Pat Sajak. She's a pretty young woman who said breasts out loud on television. You handled yourself well. Proud of you, Pat Sajak. This is why you hosted Wheel of Fortune forever. So the way that this works is there are 5 categories behind them of different types of games that are going to be played. If you get 2 questions right in that category, you own the category, and the first person to own 3 categories wins. It's weird how different this game is from the game that qualified you to fight the champion, but that's fine. So, what's also very odd is they're like, I need you to pick a category. And for some reason, the category's behind them instead of displayed on the screen that they're looking at. So much of this show is the contestants going, let's do the license plate one, I guess. Which I think is so weird, like, for television, to force your contestants to constantly turn away from the camera to see something you put behind them. What happens next is great. The first category they pick is license plates. And it's basically, we're going to show you a license plate. You figure out what it's trying to say. It's a game that's existed forever since license plates. It's like, oh, what are these license plates trying to say? These 2 girls, I mentioned before that, like, they're not nervous or anything like that, or they don't seem excited to play or anything like that. They seem very excited to win. They're not excited for money, but they want to win because of the sound it makes when they hit the buzzer. Like, you hear this, like, ka-choom! Like, they're pounding these things. And they're both super good at it. Like, they're slamming it really quickly, coming up with the answers faster than, like, a viewing audience who didn't understand the game would really understand it. We go through the license plate game. The next one is picture rhymes. They're going to show you 2 letters. They're the starting of these 2 words that rhyme. And then they're going to show you a picture that shows you the 2 words that rhyme. And you got to figure it out in your brain. So, the first one that comes up, you see the letters TN. And Lori punches her button. Just punches it. And Pat's like,
with these letters, T and N. Well, good luck if you can get this, Lori. What are the words?
My hand slipped.
My hand slip is not the right answer.
her hand totally didn't slip. The velocity and the impact that you hear shows that what she learned from the previous game was just buzz in immediately. You have enough time to, like, comprehend it after you've buzzed in and come up with your answer. It's more important that you just buzz in first. What then comes up is a bottle with 3 nipples on it. And Ann's like, triple nipple, and gets the point. And Pat's like, triple nipple? You should know. Or no, unprompted. This is actually important. Pat doesn't say anything. Ann's just like, as a cosmetic surgeon, people are coming in asking for the triple nipple all the time. Which again, I was like, you guys are way too chummy for something that's supposed to be a competition where you can walk away with like 10 G's, but whatever. and someone in the crowd boos.
They ask for that often in plastic surgery, too.
Okay. Ann Sajak. Address your letters to Ann Egerton, care of Puzzlers, Goods and Godman. All right.
My doctor will kill me.
Okay, now be careful. Don't hit your button unless you mean to. Was someone booing a triple nipple, by the way? I hear the audience boo our puzzles. Our artists spend a lot of time in that stuff.
Someone boos that joke to the point that Pat Sajak actually was like, someone booing? That's weird. We then, after that game, we get missing initial. Ooh, do I like this game. So we are going to show you the end of various words. And then you need to figure out what letter starts each of these words. So it starts out and it's like at. Could be C. Could be P. All right. Next one comes up. And it's IT. It's like, oh. It could be a couple things. And eventually someone buzzes in. And it's S. It's sat and it's sit. But the last word at the end that was supposed to be like the giveaway clue is Socrates. And Pat Sajak actually says, oh, Socrates.
S.
Yes, you are right. For sun, sink, swim, sink or swim, or sweater, or Socrates on the bottom there.
Like he's from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Socrates. The only true wisdom consists in knowing that you know nothing.
The fact that they didn't fill him in on how to say Socrates, and no one corrects him. They're just like, yes, of course, Socrates. We all know Socrates. And he mentions, like, oh, I think he's Plato's student. It's like, oh, so you know who Socrates is. Or someone gave you that joke. You never checked to see how to say the word Socrates, and you went with Socrates. Good job, Pat. The next one. The next one. Same game, but the first word that comes up is art. A-R-T. What letter can go in front of art to make a word? One of the contestants actually says,
Okay, we have a missing letter there.
I dare you.
and then the next one that comes out is able. The joke here is, if you have a dirty mind, you might think of F, because that would be fable and fart. Jokes. Constructing these kind of like silly moments, it's great for a game show. And to be honest, it doesn't happen that often that they kind of create these funny situations out of trivia. I mean, I can think of a few examples. It happens all the time now on Family Feud, because the appeal of Family Feud now is no longer the game. It's making Steve Harvey go with silly answers. It happened in a show that we covered called Shattered, where the game was, I'm going to ask you a question. Give me the answer to the previous question. So you would ask a question, you would just sit there. Then the next question, you would say the answer to question 1. And then after question 3, you gave the answer to question 2. And then after question 4, you gave the answer to question 3. Which ended up with, like, funny situations where, like, fill in the blank, I'm always blowing blank. And it was supposed to be bubbles. But the words that they're saying is, like, the Queen. So, like, this is a good little gimmick to add to the show. It adds to the fun of it. I think it's a good idea. We then get the next game, which is Twister.
Twisters. First time with this. This puzzle is a common phrase illustrated with a little twist to it. You'll get the hang of it as soon as we see the first one, and the first one is coming up right now.
That is not an explanation. Oh, I have no idea what's about to happen. They show a hat on wheels, and someone buzzes in immediately and goes roller derby. It's like, okay, you guys all clearly practiced this game, because that was not enough explanation for me to comprehend it, but we're off to the races now. There's one for like Daddy Longlegs and Big Mac. We end on the last game, which is Answer the Question, or Anne's the Cue, since that's all that could fit on the little display thing they had. Because it's all tied up. Like, they made this as exciting as possible, which makes me think it's rigged. And basically Answer the Question is probably their best game. We are going to show you just a little bit of a question at a time. Answer whenever you think you can do it. And they give you the first few letters of each words. So it starts with like, wa, ka, is, man, gra, and inv. And I was like, well, this seems impossible. And then they buzz in, they're like, green. Because the question is, what color is money, grass, and envy? This is kind of clever. Like, it requires multiple layers of thinking. Because first you have to figure out what the question is, and then what the answer is. The next question contains the phrase, it's like W-H-I, and the next one is P-R-E-S, pres. So they're able to figure out, oh, that word's probably president, so it's probably which president, but I don't know what the rest of the question is asking. So Anne buzzes in immediately and says, Abraham Lincoln, because that's a president. Wrong. This is where things kind of get a little blurry with rules. Pat goes, we're going to show you a little bit more and give you a free guess, Lori. They show a little bit more for like a moment. Then there's a buzz, like you ran out of time. And then Pat says, you're both in now. And Anne buzzes in again and says George Washington, because the question is, which president married Martha? I think it was a surprise that she was going to be able to jump in so quickly again. I just think that was weird. I have to take a phone call. Please hold. I have returned. That was Laura. She's upset she's not part of this episode, but she says hello. It seemed a little ambiguous about the rules there of whether she could come back in and buzz, but she could, and she did, and now she won. So Anne remains our champion after all the destruction of the buzzers as they were punching them with all their might. And Pat kind of says something like, when we design these games, we hope that we can get it as exciting as possible, and it really was with this one. It makes me almost wonder if this is all staged to an extent of like they wanted to show off all the games, so they didn't want to just have Anne wipe the floor with her. Though it does really feel like in this moment that these two girls are trying to win. I think there's an element as a plane flies over. I wonder if you guys can hear that. But I wonder if there's an element, because I talk about how they don't seem nervous. They don't seem excited to win money. But if they're all actors, it's worth it to be seen more. So I think there might be a desire to win, because that gives you more airtime, and you can chat around with Pat and be quippy some more. So Pat takes Anne's like, all right, you get to play for our final game where you win up to $10,000. And Lori gets sucked into the void. Our game where she can win a lot of money is not spectacular in my opinion. She talks about she's already won $6,000. And she's like, yeah, of course I did. Don't buy any of this. They're going to show her 10 pictures. For each picture, she can identify the correct initials. She wins $100. So, for example, they show EE, and then they show a picture of Punch from Chips. And she's like, Eric Estrada. And they move on. 30 seconds to do 10 of these is actually very difficult. That's 3 seconds per. So if you have any moment of just kind of like, what is that? That can really, really crush you. On top of that, like, from a game point of view, like, you can say pass, but you can't go back. Not like there would ever be time in only 30 seconds. And Anne crushes it. she gets all 10 of these and then only has 1 second to spare. Like, it almost seemed inhuman to do it as well as this. It seemed to me like she had definitely practiced this type of game many times so that she could look good on the show. Waving to the chat. I know we don't usually do Stay Doomed live, but hi. I gotta finish this and then I'll tell jokes while I'm doing the podcast. That leads to the big ending, which is the final question, which is the photo finish. Since she got 10 right, she wins $1,000. But they're also going to then multiply it by 10 so that the final question is worth $10,000. And they show her a picture in 2 sets of initials, and she quickly realizes, I think she has 10 seconds, that one set of initials is referring to the actor, the other is referring to the show, which was like the Rutherford Files. And she wins $10,000, and everybody applauds, and there's no credits because it's a pilot. They didn't even bother for credits. Because one thing I was really hoping for was like the tiny type that tells you, like, you know, this was recorded in front of a live studio audience. Part of the show not affecting gameplay was edited for TV time. Something like that. But because it's a pilot, it doesn't need to do any of that because it doesn't need to follow the rules of game shows. We've mentioned this many times, but game shows, after what happened on 21 and led to the film quiz show, are very policed. Every question that you ask the answer needs to be in a sealed envelope somewhere to prove that this was always the answer and nothing was changed. But if it's a pilot, no one's actually winning money. Then it's just kind of an improv show. You don't have to do that. And thus, they didn't. I think it's very clear that these are actors who are not actually winning the money. This is common with game shows. We covered a show on Stay Doomed called Cash Tornado, which is... It's not a great episode of Stay Doomed because it was not a great thing to watch, but it is a television show that they were trying to sell to different states' local lottery, because it was a show you could end up on if you won this one lottery to win more money. This was a pilot for, I believe, NBC. They then also shopped it to CBS, but it didn't get picked up, which it's kind of a shame. It is a fun show. I think it requires more work from a question point of view than your standard trivia. I think it is easier to write a Jeopardy question than it is to create art that's also a pun for someone to figure out. Also, there is this kind of issue that, like, the 5 categories during the categories round, you would think that those would, like, rotate, so you wouldn't always see the same thing, which is great for variety. It's a pain for production because you got to create more stuff. But I think overall, this show does a really good job of selling itself as fun, laid back, anyone can do it type of trivia. You know, when it comes to, like, a trivia show, you want to have those shows like your Jeopardies, where it's like, wow, the people on this are very, very intelligent. You wanted to have those shows where, like, you have to be insanely intelligent to succeed, and then when you watch it at home, you're like, wow, I'm impressed. But you also want the game shows that you can sit at home and you can win before the contestants do, and you think that you're smarter than them, and it's fun to play with the family. Like, a kid could do this. This could make a great Nickelodeon show. This kind of felt like a less fun this felt like a more fun Get the Picture, which was a Nickelodeon show. I think overall this is a really fun show, and I'm surprised to hear that this didn't get picked up. I think there's a lot of fun to be had. I think from a gameplay point of view, seems fair. I think the only thing that I would kind of tweak is I think it's weird to have 3 contestants in the first round. I think it's better for that to be a face-off. You're going like one-on-one. I think the reason that they stayed away from that is since each puzzle is 2 things. Like, they used the same picture for 2 puzzles. If you always split them, it'll stay a tie. I think adding a third person does kind of like interfere with that. There was also like a mechanic of like if you got both of them, you got a bonus $100, which I think means more when there's 3 of them. Yeah, maybe 3 does work better than 2 in that scenario. I just felt like it made it a little clunky, but overall, I think this is a great show. I'm really surprised that this didn't get picked up. Like, it was constantly fresh. It wasn't the same thing over and over again. You know, Jeopardy will always be just answering questions. There's picture questions, there's reading questions, there's, like, bits of trivia in there. This is really fun. Things like the answer the question where you're only getting parts of the words. I'm surprised I've never seen another game show do that, because it's an interesting and unique way to challenge your contestants. Overall, for me, this is a stay tuned. Granted, that might mean that this is where Pat Sajak stays and we don't get Wheel of Fortune, which would be a problem. Or someone else would get Wheel of Fortune. This one, like, as enjoyable as it is, it doesn't feel like a Wheel of Fortune or a Jeopardy, in that because it's constantly fluctuating and changing, that it doesn't have a chance to really sink its teeth into you. It's more like The Price is Right, where, like, you know the feel of what you're going to do when you go in, but you're always playing a different game. Like, you know it's going to involve guessing a price, but you might have to also golf or, change the price of a car or play Plinko or something like that. That just kind of mixes it up, even though everything's kind of the same, like, baseline of what it's asking you to do. I think this is great. Reception for it seems good. There's a lot of really positive comments on the YouTube video thanking Wink Martindale for bringing this out of his vault, because it was a bit of a curio. And Pat Sajak's, like, first big thing, he was a weatherman at the time. It was his first time hosting a game show, and he does an amazing job. It's fun, it's laid back, he's not intimidating, and, like I said, everyone's a bit quippy, but you're trying to sell the show, and the show's good and well sold here. So I'm going to give it a stay tuned. And I hope you continue to stay tuned right here to the Stay Doomed podcast. Once again, we got to get through May. May's a bit of a crazy month for us. And then we'll get back to Stay Doomed Classic. But until then, we're doing these live shows. So be sure to follow me on Twitch. That's +2 Comedy. And also, be sure to subscribe to +2 Comedy on YouTube. So, you can get more of these. And if you're listening to this wherever audio is sold, if you're listening to this on Podbean or Audible or Pod Links or Google Podcasts or iTunes or whatever it is now, there was a full video for this if you wanted to look at my face over on the YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out as well. Hopefully Scortch will be coming out next. If not, we'll be going live once again here for Stay Doomed Live. Thank you so much for joining me in the graveyard. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at thestaydoomshow@gmail.com. If you want to talk to me, I'm +2 Comedy on Twitter. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, stay doomed.